friends. During the past week, there was a sailor who sent a telegram to the captain of a ship saying, "I just met an angel, will report in 72 hours. And the captain of the ship sent back a wire saying, "Send the angel to Bishop Sheen, you report immediately." And not very long ago, our good friend Milton Berle said, both Bishop Sheen and I use old material. But tonight I'm going to use much older material than he could ever delve into. You know, someone every now and then boasts that I have an absolutely new idea. There are three answers to that. One is, treat it kindly as in a strange place. The other is beginner's luck. And the third and good answer is, go back and see how the Greeks put it. And tonight we're going back to see how the Greeks put it, and how all the ancients put it. Very often a child, of course, when Christmas season comes around, will look forward with anticipation to that feast. And what happens in the mind of a child has actually happened to the whole human race. And tonight we're going to make a survey of 1,000 years of pre-Christian history. And we will delve into the yearnings and the hopes and the aspirations and anticipations of some of the great people of the past. We will begin with the Greeks, going back, I say, 1,000 years before the Christian era. Then we will discuss some of the Eastern people, then the Romans and their civilization, and finally the civilization of the Hebrews. Each in turn. First of all, the yearning and anticipation of the Greeks. One of the greatest epic poets who ever lived was Homer. And Homer wrote two great works, one called the Iliad and the other the Odyssey. The Iliad was the story of a defeated king. And the Odyssey, the story of a sorrowful woman. The real hero of the Iliad was not Achilles, but the defeated King Hector. Achilles, clad in the armor of the god Vulcan, defeated Hector and then dragged his body after his chariot. And then one night, aged Priam, the father, went into the tent of the victor. And the poem ends with a glorification of the king who went down to defeat. Then he also wrote the Odyssey. The story of Odyssey, who was traveling around the world for 20 years. While he was away, his wife was courted by many suitors. And many of them asked to marry her, and she said, when she finished weaving this particular garment, that she would then decide on a suitor. The suitors did not know that each night Penelope undid the stitches which he put in the daytime and remained faithful until Odyssey returned. And the poem was the glorification of this tragic woman whom Homer called the most sorrowful woman. And into the current of Greek literature was thrown the story of a king who was made great in defeat, and a woman who was sad, and not anyone understood the meaning of that until 1,000 years later, when a king would be defeated and still be victorious, and the sorrowful woman would be benign and worthy of veneration and respect. And then coming 600 years before the Christian era, we come to the great dramatist Aeschylus. We spoke about his Prometheus bound last week. And in this story, you remember Prometheus is bound to a rock. He has stolen fire from heaven, and an eagle comes and devours his entrails. Maybe a symbol of modern man, not whose entrails are being devoured by an eagle, but whose mind and heart are uneasy, devoured, as it were, by anxieties and fears, neuroses and psychosis. And that throughout these years that I am describing, these thousands of years, there was this yearning for some kind of deliverance from guilt, some plea for a great wisdom that might come. And finally, Hermes speaks to Prometheus and says, look not for any end, moreover, to this curse, until some God appears, to accept upon his head the pangs of thy own sins by carrying. A few centuries later, the great Socrates. And in the second dialogue with Alcibiades, we read that one day Alcibiades was about to go into the temple, and he came to Socrates, the wise man, and he said, what shall I ask of the gods? And Socrates said, wait. Wait, he said, for a wise man who is to come will tell us how we are to conduct ourselves before God and man. And Alcibiades said, I'm most anxious to know this man. When will he come? Socrates said, I know not, but certainly not until the fog has been cleared away from our minds. And Alcibiades said, and I desire to do everything that he wills. And Socrates said, and he wills good things for you. This is the current of Greek literature. Man looking for another wisdom than the earthly, some kind of release from his inner guilt. And then we come to the Eastern people. And these great religions of the East that we hear so little about, great indeed they are in the natural order. For example, Hinduism. The Hindus desired some kind of what they called an avatar, namely one of their many gods that might come down to this earth. Like a Krishna would be a kind of a god becoming a man. Like Bhagavad Gita, becoming a brother. But most of all, the great Brahma, who would come to save man from Kaliga, the serpent of evil. And then the great Confucius, the wisdom of China. Confucius said, the true wise man will come from above, and he will have all power in heaven and on earth. And then more remarkable still, Buddha. One day he was talking to the 6 centuries before Christ. He was talking to his friend Ananda. And he said to Ananda, I am not the light. There will be other Buddhas beside me. The kingdom of truth will not come for 500 years. And then will come the true Buddha, whose name will be Maitreya, which will mean love. And this current of expectation that we find in the Greeks, that we find in the Eastern people, and their sacrifices, for example, pouring out blood as if blood in some way had been associated with guilt, and they felt that by releasing that they might release their own guilt. All of this was the yearning. Then comes more remarkable yearnings still, the Romans. Great Latin writers like Suetonius, Cicero, Tacitus. Remember how hard Tacitus was in college? And Tacitus writes that there is a universal belief that the great wise man will come from Judea. And Suetonius, writing at the beginning of the Christian era, said that the time that was foretold by the Sibyls, they were some of the prophets of these pagan peoples, the time foretold by the Sibyls, the 1,000th saculum of Apollo has come. And Cicero arose one day, and in one of those great, magnificent orations, he said, we are told, he said, by the Sibyls, that we must accept a king who alone can save us. But he said, I ask the Sibyls. And then Cicero put it, in quem hominem. In other words, in what man, who will he be, and at what time? In quem hominem. Maybe another Roman answered Cicero the day that this other Roman said, Ecce homo. Behold the man. And greater still, Virgil. Virgil in his fourth eclogue. Here he was quoting the Sibyl, particularly the Sibyl of Cuma. In this fourth eclogue he wrote, the last day foretold by Cuma's seer is come. A mighty roll of generations new is now reborn. Justice now returns. And from high heaven descends a worthier race of men. Smile, taste, Lucina. Taste, Lucina. Smile on thy infant boy. Then this famous line, then of Virgil. Incipe, begin. Little boy, parve puer. Begin, little boy. Risu, with a smile, cognoscere, to know thy mother. That written in the year 31 BC in the fourth eclogue of Virgil. And now, as these expectations multiply, we come to the greatest of them all. And the greatest of them all, of course, is that of the Hebrews. You remember that the great Hebrew civilization was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, in the year 586. Nebuchadnezzar took back with him into Babylon one who was called the wisest and the most handsome of the Jews. His name was Daniel. And Nebuchadnezzar had a dream one night. And the dream that he had, he was unable to interpret, nor any of his wise men. And I wish I could draw you something like unto which that he saw, but I can't draw, so tonight I'm going to ask my angel very quickly to do a drawing on the blackboard for me. And that'll save me a lot of trouble, and then you will know later on what I'm talking about. So my little angel would do the drawing. It only takes a second for an angel to do a drawing. And there it is. This is the dream of Nebuchadnezzar the king. He saw a great and tremendous colossus. See how big he is? These are men down here. And the head was of gold, and the shoulders and arms were of silver. The thighs were of brass, and the legs, the feet, of iron and clay. And a great stone hewn from the mountain without hands came down from the mountains and crushed at this statue and struck it at the feet of clay and ground it into dust. What was the meaning of it? Sages could not tell. It was one with all of this expectation of the world for 1,000 years. Daniel interpreted, and he said, these are the kingdoms that will divide the world until the coming of the expectatio gentium, the coming of the expected one of the world. The empire of gold, he said, is you, Babylon. You will fall. You will be devoured by the empire of silver. The empire of silver by the empire of brass. The empire of brass by the empire of iron and clay. And in the year 536, Cyrus of the Medes and Persians came to this great fortified city of Babylon, 16 miles square, 16 gates of solid bronze, giving entrance to it. He turned aside the waters of the Euphrates that ran through the center, and then went out of the dry bed of the river, and that night Balthazar was slain at his feet, and the empire of gold was devoured by the empire of silver. Then there came beginning now of a new empire, the empire of brass, which was that of Greece. And there arose a young man, only 20 years of age, one of the greatest generals the world ever knew, Alexander. And he went out to do battle, one of the successors of Cyrus, Darius III. And one night, one of his lieutenants came to him, and he said, the army is asleep. Strike and you will win. And think of it. Alexander said, it is not fair to fight at night. He waited until daytime. And then in the first great war between Europe and Asia, Alexander won. And the great civilizations now began to pour westward over all of Europe, beginning with Greece. And Alexander died at the age of 33 with no more worlds to conquer. And there arose, short time after that, the new empire which was Rome. The empire that was commanded over for the time being by Consul Mummius, who defeated the outposts of the Grecian power in Corinth near 146 BC. They said that for 10 days they burned the city of Corinth. The soldiers of Rome used to use the great works of art as their target. Finally, Rome was master of the world. There was only one official language in the world. It was Latin. There was only one capital in the world. It was pagan Rome. There was only one emperor, and it was Caesar Augustus. And Caesar Augustus sits at his desk along the banks of the Tiber. And before him is a map labeled Orbs Terrarum Imperium Romanum, the circle of the earth, the Roman Empire. The whole world was his. He decided to take up a census. The temple of Janus, which he could see from his window, was closed. The temple that was open generally in times of war in order to pray for success of arms might now have been clogged with bodies, but in any case, there was peace. Therefore the census, and out to every governor, out to every satrap, out to every province, out to every tetrarch goes the order. Everyone enroll in his own city. Tens of thousands of feet were set in motion all over the world, obeying the mandate of a single man. Little did he know that he, this imperial bookkeeper of the Tiber, was actually fulfilling a prophecy that was made by the great Hebrew Micaiah 500 years before, and thou, Bethlehem, art the least of the cities. And out of thee will he come forth, who will be the captain. The notice is finally posted. It's free in a little village of Nazareth. Village carpenter and a maid read it, since they belong to the defunct royalty, namely the defunct royalty of the family of David, whose city was Bethlehem. They had to journey to Bethlehem. And to Bethlehem they go. There was no room in the inn. The inn is the gathering place of public opinion. So out to the stables they go. And there rings out a cry. A gentle cry. Cry of a newborn babe. The sea could not hear the cry. The sea was filled with its own voice. The great ones of the earth could not hear the cry, for they could not understand how a God could be greater than a man. Shepherds and wise men came, and they saw a babe whose tiny hands were not quite long enough to touch the huge heads of the cattle, and yet hands that were steering the reins that keep the sun and moon and stars in their courses. Baby lips that did not speak. Baby lips that might have articulated the secrets of every living man that hour. And under that brow was beating a mind and an intelligence compared to which the combined intelligences of Europe and America amount to naught. Baby feet that did not walk, not just because they were baby feet, but because those baby feet could not bear the weight of divine omnipotence. Eternity in time, omnipotence in bonds, God in the form of man. The bird that built the nest is hatched therein. The yearnings of Buddha, Confucius, of Aeschylus, of Virgil, of Socrates, of Plato, all of these yearnings were now realized along with the Sibyls at this particular moment when there is born the one who made for us the feast of Christmas. Child in a foul stable, the wild beasts feed and sow. Only for he was homeless, for you and I at home. Incipe, parve puer. Risu. Begin, little child, to recognize thy mother with a smile. God love you.